you wanted the best, you've got the best podcast, the hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
Hello, this is Voss here from the ChrisVossShow.com. When the shrill lady sings it, breaks your eardrums, yeah, that's her coming in there. Thanks for doing it, folks. We certainly appreciate it. As always, the Chris Voss Show is a family that loves you, doesn't judge you, at least not as harshly as the rest of your family. But as always, for the show, your family, friends, and relatives, go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss, Chris Voss one on the TikTok, and all those crazy places on the internet. Opinions expressed by guests on the podcast are solely their own and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the host or the Chris Voss Show. Some guests of the show may be advertising on the podcast, but it is not an endorsement or review of any kind. We had an amazing man on the show today. We're going to be talking about his exciting ideas and about leadership. Oh my God, another book on leadership, Chris? Yeah, well, it's kind of my thing. Anyway, he has offered the latest book that will be forthcoming on August 19th, 2025, called The Detour CEO, 9 Unexpected Turns on the Road to Leadership Success. Paul Perreault joins us on the show. Today, we're going to be talking to him about all the good stuff that's in his book and the details and all that. His new book, it tells a story of an unlikely journey and values that guided him every step of the way. He was raised as the second of 8 children. He was raised as the second of 8 children and married for over 44 years. He built his life on faith, grit, and a strong sense of purpose. Early on, his wife taught school where they worked together to create a future defined by status, not by status, but by service. Being a CEO is a job. It's not who I am. And it can all go away with a heartbeat, Paul says. That belief still grounds him today, whether leading teams, mentoring rising executives, or spending time with his grandkids. Paul's focus remains on people and not positions. Paul, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing great, Chris. How are you?
I'm doing excellent. Give us a .coms. Where do you want people to find out more about you on the interwebs?
You can go to paulperreaultsr.com. That's PaulPerreaultsr.
There you
.com.
So give us a 30,000 overview. What's inside your new book?
You know, I was in the C-suite as CEO of one of the largest companies in the world for about a decade, and people seem to be interested in the story of how I got there. Mm-hmm. And so every time I told the story, people said, that's really cool. That's unbelievable. And you started where and how did you get there? And, what was the plan? And, unbeknownst to me, there was never a plan. So it was, one of those things that surprised the heck out of me when they put me in charge, and also my mother, because, why would they put me in charge of anything? But, it's one of those things where as I look at where I started, a lot of people today think there's like this tick the box exercise to get to the C-suite. Mm-hmm. And for me, it wasn't that way at all. I mean, it was a lot of trial, error, taking on different roles, trying to continually add value in the jobs I had. And I didn't even know that I was going anywhere. When I started in college, I started originally starting out studying for the priesthood in a Benedictine monastery.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I was there for about 3.5 years till I left. Uh-huh. And it was just one of those things where, I thought I had the calling, but it turned out to be a crank call. So I said, okay.
God has the Jersey boys up there. And
he does.
Sometimes they make some crank calls. Remember
That's exactly
boys
right.
From the 90s there?
Absolutely.
Oh, so you'll have to look that up.
Yeah, they'll look it up, I'm sure. There's no TikTok. But anyway, I think it was, just an interesting start for me to move from there to selling drugs. And I ended up, going into pharmaceutical sales after a bunch of other jobs.
Oh, so legitimate drugs then.
Yeah, legitimate stuff.
This would have been a funner story if it had been other types of drugs. It might not have ended the same.
No, probably not. I saw Breaking Bad. But, it was one of those things where as I took a look at my career and I looked back on it, I said, I didn't know at the time when things were happening that I was actually setting myself up for what ultimately became, my final role in the corporate world before retiring, which I'm kind of retired, and people will see that on my website. I've had a lot of people say, "You're not very good at retirement." I said, "Yeah, well, I'm still trying to add value. I'm still trying to help," and that's a big part of my book as well. Is starting off as what I thought would be a servant leader, and being a servant leader in other ways within corporate world and rare diseases and taking care of patients and knowing patients personally and their families. I mean, it was really a career of love and honor to be able to, take care of people in such a beneficial way. But so anyway, people thought that was kind of an interesting story. Started out as a sales rep, and where am I going to go from there? I thought I was going to retire sales rep because I loved it. I calling them like docs and hospitals and doing all that stuff. And then all of a sudden, somebody came to me and said, you should try something different. You're doing really well in sales, but maybe you should train some people on that. And I'm like, really? What happens to my customers? And they're like, no, you'll find other stuff. You'll find that you're actually helping other people sell. And I'm like, okay, great. So I did both. And then somebody came to me and said, well, you should be a manager. And I'm like, really? And I was like, why would I do that? And they're like, well, then because you can build a team and you can now build teams. And I'm like, well, it sounds interesting. And, so I took that role on and failed miserably my first year because I never managed people. I didn't know, it was so hard. People, I think Seinfeld said people, they're the worst. But, it was one of those things that.
I met some.
But they're really not. I mean, people are great, and you got to have people.
Have you been on Twitter lately? No, I'm just on Twitter.
Not lately.
It's a good callback, Joe.
Yeah, I got it. So anyway, I the book is about that journey. It's about all the twists and turns in my career and people that helped me to try different things, to push to different areas. And then there's some learnings at the end of each chapter that I've had in my career. That's the general overview and what I'm doing and with the book. And then just if you go to my website real quickly, and then we can delve into some other stuff, whatever you'd like. But I am sitting on a couple of private boards, helping people with some startups in the biotech and healthcare field. I'm doing some advising in private equity and healthcare. I'm doing some mentoring. I'm doing speaking at conferences, and when people are looking for somebody to come in and talk about leadership and strategy. So I have a company I call Strategitorship, which doesn't really roll off the tongue, but it's kind of the combination of where strategy meets leadership. And there's a lot of books written about strategy, a lot written about leadership, not a lot written about how the two of them can be synergistic in terms of really multiplying values, culture, returns for companies and organizations and the people in them.
Yeah. Now the title of your book, it's titled The Detour CEO. And I think you kind of referenced it a little bit that you were moving through your career and people try some different things. Is that what the Detour CEO, it's Monday for me, evidently. The Detour CEO, is that what it refers to? The it is. It's road of turns.
It is. The subtitle is 9 Unexpected Turns on the Road to Leadership Success. So it's one of those things where I took different twists and turns. I left a company to join another company, but I had different options at that time to do other things. And, at the time, again, I was making decisions in the moment, thinking I was and hoping I was making the right decision. But when I look back at these unexpected opportunities, it all falls into place on how I ended up getting to the C-suite where I didn't even know I was getting to be honest. So I never had the aspiration to be CEO. When I was a kid, I wanted to be like an astronaut. I didn't want to be a CEO. I didn't even know what a CEO was. So it's one of those things where those twists and turns really helped me become a generalist. And I talk about that a lot in my book because I think that general management and being a generalist is a bit of a lost skill these days when everybody wants to specialize. And you actually need specialists, there's no doubt. Mm-hmm. But generalists need to be able to see the whole picture across the organization. I grew up in the business. So taking on all those different roles allowed me to get the general knowledge to see how all the pieces fit together. And I didn't know I was acquiring all that at the time, other than I was always interested in learning more.
Yeah. Most definitely. So this is, would you say this is a memoir then?
I'd say it's partly a memoir, partly, hopefully humorous. So keep people's interest a little bit. People say I have a lot of dad jokes, and I probably do, but it is a memoir, but it's also, I wrote it really, Chris, for kind of mid-career, early career folks that think they want to be in the C-suite. So you get there and you find out how miserable it can be. But, it is part of, the learnings of how I got there and the fact that there isn't a straight path. And if, I think we talked earlier about, maybe being president, which, some people might not be cut out for. And I think the thing that people have said before is if you want to be president, maybe you shouldn't even try to be. And I think the same about the C-suite sometimes is that if you think you want to be the CEO, maybe you're not the right person. So it's not something I aspired to in my career, but it happened. And sometimes I was the last to know I was even up for a promotion.
That's how it is around my office. No one ever tells me if I ever get promoted or not. But I have worked for myself for 18 years, so the problem may be in the leadership of this company.
Maybe you should talk to yourself.
Well, I do that already. I'm single, no wife, no kids, and I've just got a husky. So, I pretty much talk to myself, or I talk to the dog, and the dog just looks at me and goes, "You need help." Like, seriously. She handed me a psychiatrist card the other day. I have no idea where she got it, but I don't know. It's a husky. They do things. So in your book, you help people identify and prioritize top performers. How do I find these people, and can I brand them? Like with one of those iron fire things like in Texas?
Well, I guess, you might chip them these days as opposed to branding. Yeah, maybe we should
got to get the AI in them. Got to
they say
do the Elon Musk thing.
Chip off the old block. So I guess you got to find them somewhere. But, I'd say that identifying your top performers is kind of interesting. I mean, clearly you can, and it depends on the culture of the company as well, right? I mean, there are some people that can perform at a very high level, but, they're willing to kill anybody to get to where they need to get to.
Yeah.
That's not really the culture I was trying to inspire within the organization. Okay, can you take care of this person, by next week? Well, I could have it done by lunch. It's like, oh, yeah, okay.
That's when you work for the mob. No,
but the top performer, yeah. I don't know. I haven't worked for them yet, but they're probably still around. I'm not.
You might want to check your wife and see if she's cool with that new career, though.
That could be a good question.
Yeah, that's a good question.
She's seen the movie.
I don't know. I mean, if you got a good life insurance policy, she might like it. How long you been married?
44 years.
Oh, yeah, she's into it, yeah.
Yeah, it's been the happiest 22 years of her life.
She's the one who's going to put you in the trunk eventually. Anyway,
that's right. No, me too. But anyway, I think you identify them by looking at their performance. You look at the value they can add to the organization. You look at how they interact with the rest of the organization, how they live the values of the company, the culture of the company. Mm-hmm. And sometimes, it's very interesting because you can identify people that are adding value and can become your 20% just by observing. And you're sitting in a meeting, and sometimes the loudest voice in the room is not the one you actually want to listen to. And the people around the table seem to know that too. So there are some people, when they speak up, all of a sudden everybody kind of listens. And they may not be the person you think of as, the front runner, but there's certainly something they've developed with the group where people realize this person is adding value somewhere and that has something to say that's worthwhile. So you have to do a lot of observation. You have to actually try and listen. You don't just go for the shiny object of the day that might be just a flash in the pan. But it's consistency, it's delivery, it's values, it's culture, it's everything that they can bring to the table to work with the strategy and live the strategy of the organization. The other thing is they have to be good managers. There are individual top performers, in sales and in other areas where, you know who these top performers are, but even Scotty Scheffler has a coach, right? So you have to, and he can get that much better incrementally just by one or two tips where you don't have to spend all day with them. But people spend no days sometimes with their top performers, and that's a mistake because they're looking for help too. Yeah. So you identify them, then you have to help them, and then let them ride.
Yeah. The 80-20 rules, I used to call it. It's always funny, no matter how much you try and beat the system of the 80-20 rule, 20% of your people are always your top performers. Sometimes it's even smaller. Like in real estate, I think it's like 5% maybe. But I would always try and muck with the 80-20 rule. Like sometimes we'd switch leads up. Sometimes I would try and, like you say, focus, maybe spending more time on my non-performers, because my performers, they just kind of, you give them an 8-ball of cocaine and a hooker and a limo, and they're fine for like a weekend. But why is it everyone always gets that joke?
Yeah,
anyway, I don't know.
Too many movies.
Yeah, too many movies, and I don't know, too many calls that I've gotten. Your top salesman's at the bar here. You need to come pick him up, Chris. Okay, on our way over. Anyway, but the money, and so I tried to spend more time, to develop my, the lower folks that aren't the top salespeople, to see if we could make the flip switch, and we just never could. It wasn't. Those people have skills, and they're good at what they do, and there's a reason they are. And over time I would muck with the system just to try and see if I could spin it, and I could never spin it. People are always the top people.
That's true, and I think in an organization that bell curve is really what we're talking about a lot. And if you can just shift that bell curve a little bit, to the left. And get to 21, 22% or 23%. I mean, it just makes it but you're never going to get to 50%. I mean, it's really hard to find that in any organization I've ever been. So you're absolutely right. But, one of the chapters in the book talks about don't try to fix everything. And that includes every person. Oh. So as a CEO, you can't you can't fix everything. There's too much going on. Mm-hmm. And so there are only certain things a CEO can do, and certain things maybe they should do. And then there are other things that are okay if a CEO might do it, 75% or 60%. You don't have to do everything 100%. As somebody once told me, you're not Superman. You can't do everything 100%.
What?
Yeah, that's what I said.
Me to be Superman. So.
I was shocked too.
Yeah, I just everyone's like, it's tough being a CEO. Now, were you a CEO at a public company, or was it private?
No, it was a public company. It was one of the top 200 largest companies in the world. So it was over 100 billion market cap. But it was based in Australia, headquarters. So CSL Limited. And, we're not on Kramer's Mad Money because it's Australian listed stock. Okay. So if you don't know, the Australian Stock Exchange, or you don't know somebody that has a rare disease that we treat, you might not have heard of the company. But it was over, like I said, over 100 billion market cap with 33,000 employees. So I'd say it was pretty good size.
Well, you don't want to be on Kramer's list anyway. You always do the opposite of what Kramer tells you to do. I've been following that since Lehman Brothers, and he told everyone to double down and buy it 2 days before, I think 2 or 3 days before it folded. So I've kind of learned with him, we just do the opposite and you'll probably be fine. I think there's actually somebody who did a thread or a study on that, and actually
George Costanza.
Was it George Costanza?
Yeah, just do the opposite.
Yeah, just do the opposite. Yeah. And it'll work. Yeah, some things in that way too. So I do that with the same advice from the Kardashians. And that's why I have an inverted butt. I don't know what that means. Anyway, but I did have it implanted. So people right now are sitting at home going, how do you implant an inverted butt? See your doctor. By the way, today's show is brought to us by Plastic Surgery in Florida. We use concrete. So what else should people know about what you're doing on your website too? Because I think you've got some offerings there, speaking engagements, something called Strategic. Yeah, I'll let you do that one then.
Yeah, strategic. It's one of those things that I think people that think about strategy and people that think about leadership within a company, but they're typically different people that think about those two things. And so, as I might say, there's a lot of books on strategy, a lot on leadership, but not a lot that brings the two pieces together. We haven't really found that many books that talk about both. But so there's an academic side to kind of strategy and game theory, and that's all well and good to think about in terms of your business and your competitors and all the rest. But the leadership piece is critical because without the people side of the business, it's going to be really tough. And as much as we want robots to run everything, I'm not sure that that's going to be the end game. So you're still going to have to lead people. You're still going to have to manage people. And really, if you're a great leader, it probably means you're a really good manager as well, because people found you to be trustworthy. They found you to be fair, and they would go through the wall for you if you treated them appropriately. And then all of a sudden, people start following you, and you become a leader in that vein. And there's a lot to it.
Yeah.
A lot of people can manage up, but they don't manage down well, or they don't manage across well. And they don't tend to be the best leaders, to be honest.
Yeah. Hey, and why do you think that is? Because they're trying to do too many things at once?
Chris, I just think that they're more thinking about themselves. They want to be some inspirational leader, and hubris is not a good thing. There's a difference between hubris and confidence, and I think if you can't lead across the organization or manage your peers with what's going on, because you're usually working in some sort of cross-functional teams, and if you can't manage down and your people hate you or fear you or don't trust you, how are you going to be a good leader? So you got to start with management, and everybody wants to be a good leader, but nobody wants to manage anybody.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. I pull this a lot because everybody I talk to, we seem to all kind of run up against the same thing. I talk to a lot of leaders, and when I talk to them, I'll ask them, what's your leadership style? Like, what is your format of your leadership? What would you call it? Or how do you work it? And I'm amazed at how many don't know. Is that just me? Is everyone playing a prank on me or something?
Well, I don't know if they're playing a prank on you, or they just don't want to say, or
that's right. They're keeping it secret.
They might just not know what their style is. But I'd say my style is approachable. It's management by walking around. It's being a good listener. There's a difference between hearing and listening, actually. So there's things that I did in my leadership style to develop the culture. It's walking the talk and holding yourself accountable, and not being afraid to have somebody call you out if I'm not living the values. I didn't fire people if they said, hey, you're not doing the right thing, because our values say this, but you just did that. And I'm human, actually. I'm not a robot. So, I do make mistakes all the time.
Yeah.
I'm sure the show's not a mistake, though, Chris.
Yeah. This is one of the few you got right.
Yeah, thanks.
Some of the ones you got right. You got a lot of things right, I'm sure. But
I used to do a lot of walking around. I used to, and it's interesting that the people in the office or in the plants, they'd love to have me come and show me what they're doing, but it was their managers that were always a bit nervous about what they might say to me, and that kind of tells me something. So yeah. But I have found that people, I think, mostly found me approachable, although somewhat intimidating, just because I'm a large fellow. And, I am pretty confident, and I do have this relaxed, angry face that my wife talks about. So,
relaxed, angry face. I have a resting bitch face, too. People look at me and they go, he's really angry about something. And I'm like, no, I just have to poop. Like, I'm 58 or 57. I'm not 58 yet. I guess I'm
young man.
Yeah, but usually if I have resting bitch face, I just have to poop. There's something. The Taco Bell buffet night didn't go well the night before, so it's not going well the next morning either. Anyway, enough about me. So, but it sounds like you're one of those CEOs who've identified your style. You understand the inlay of culture and how to put it into your companies. That's the other thing I ask a lot of CEOs. I'm like, so what's the culture you try and engender at your company and stuff? What's a culture? And I'm like, seriously?
No, you can make it in the lab. You can get some. Yeah. You can culture all kinds of stuff in the laboratory, but just not sure that's not the culture we're actually looking for. I mean, sometimes we are. Sometimes that is exactly the culture we're looking for. But in biotech, but
I had some of those cultures after a trip to Thailand, but that's another story.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Pepto-Bismol.
Yeah, that'll get you through the Taco Bell thing night. But no, it's so important that CEOs think about this thing. And I'm just really surprised, especially with like Fortune 500 companies, because many times you're stepping into a situation where maybe there was bad morale before. There was some, bad leadership, and, sometimes you're called in to try and, reset the balance of the organization with healthy leadership. And so you kind of have to know what the old culture was to bring in the new culture. You can't just come in and then people are like, the old CEO was that way and everyone hated him.
Yeah.
You're like, damn it, I can't just rule by fiat and demand things of people. Well, everything will improve. They put the gun up against the head. If your behavior improves, we'll pull the gun away.
That's right. Right. Morale will improve.
That's how we work around the Chris Voss show, by the way.
Look, I'd say that culture is really hard, and that's why people find it difficult to, talk about it, because you have to have consistency over a long period of time. You have to keep talking about the values. You have to keep talking about the behaviors. So it's not, when you have your performance reviews, what we used to do is talk about not just the what did you do, but how did you get it done? Did you live the values while you were accomplishing these goals? So we would talk about that and instill that into people, trying to get them to think about, their behaviors in the organization. Because we had core values that we lived by, and patient focus was number one, because the only reason we exist in this business, in the biotech, pharma, healthcare side, is to take care of patients. Yeah. So why aren't they first in front of every company that's in this business? They should be. Yeah, they should be. And so patients number one, but innovation and collaboration and integrity and superior performance. Those were the values. Those are the things that people were held accountable to do. Yeah. And so we tried to instill that in every meeting, tried to instill it in the performance reviews, tried to instill it in every time I spoke. I didn't speak about the share price ever. Unless I got a question from the audience. And then it was like, well, what are you worried about? Are you doing your job? Are you doing it the best you can? Are you adding value for yourself and for the company and for the patients that we're serving? Because you need to work every day like somebody's life depends on it, because it actually did. These were non-discretionary medicines for rare diseases. So it was a great purpose, and then you set the vision and you build the culture. But all of that takes time. Yeah. It takes money. HR usually gets the short end of the stick when budget time rolls around. Everybody wants great culture and all this, but nobody wants to spend any money on it to say, okay, how are we going to continue to instill this in the process? Yeah. It's pretty wild. So give us your final thoughts as we go out. Tell people where to pick up the book and how they can find out more. Well, you can find it on Amazon. August 19th is the release date. Shortly after, you'll be able to get the audio version. It will be available day one on Kindle as well. And we look forward to, you can also order it off of my website. That's paulperreaultsr.com. And you can reach me through there as well. All my contact information is on the website. Like I said, if you're looking for somebody to speak about culture, leadership, organizations, or any of those topics, happy to help. And mentor, I'd love to speak to universities as well and young minds to tell them about how maybe the real world works compared to when you're in school and trying to learn how it works. So because I've lived it a long time, 44 years in the industry, and started in sales, left as a CEO somehow, surprising everybody, including, as I said, my mother. Here we go. So I really appreciate the time, Chris, and it's an honor being on your show. You've done a fantastic job. Thank you. It was an honor to have you as well. And we got some good jokes in, too, on top of it. So thank you very much for coming to the show. We really appreciate it. Yeah. Thank you, Chris. Thank you. And thanks so much for tuning in. Pre-order the book right now, The Detour CEO, 9 Expected... Let me recut that. The Detour CEO, 9 Unexpected Turns on the Road to Leadership Success, out August 19, 2025 by Paul Perreault. Thanks so much for tuning in. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss, Chris Voss1 on the TikTokity, and all those crazy places on the internet. Be good to each other. Stay safe. We'll see you guys next time.